The rain hammered down on the cracked asphalt of the trailer park like God's own judgment, each drop a tiny accusation. Ryan Whitaker, 18 and soaked to the bone, clutched his backpack strap so tight his knuckles turned white, staring at the front door of the double-wide he'd called home for his entire miserable life in rural Ohio. "You're no son of mine," his father's voice boomed from inside, slurring through the screen door, followed by the shatter of a beer bottle against the wall Mom's favorite vase, the one from their trip to Niagara Falls when he was 10. Ryan didn't flinch. He'd known this was coming since the night before, when his best friend Tommy had spilled the beans after catching him kissing Jake behind the bleachers at the county fair. Small towns like Milford ate secrets for breakfast, and by noon, the whispers had turned to shouts. His dad, red-faced and bellowing about faggots ruining America, had grabbed the shotgun from the gun rack, not to shoot, thank God, but to wave like a goddamn flag of disgust. Mom had just stood there, arms crossed over her faded floral apron, eyes darting between her husband and the boy she'd raised on cornbread and Bible stories. "Pack your shit and go," she'd said, voice flat as the fields outside. No tears. No please. Just that. He'd walked out without a word, thumb out on Route 23, hitching rides from truckers who eyed him like fresh meat. By midnight, the lights of Columbus blurred past, and he stepped off a Greyhound in downtown Cincinnati, $20 in his pocket and a heart pounding like a bass drum in a Metallica song. The city smelled of wet concrete and fried onions from street vendors, a far cry from the manure-scented air of home. Ryan slumped against a lamppost, rain mixing with the hot sting of tears he refused to let fall. What now? He was invisible here. Just another runaway kid with nowhere to crash and a backpack full of thrift store jeans and a dog-eared copy of The Catcher in the Rye, the one book that had made him feel less alone in his own skin. That's when the headlights cut through the downpour, a beat-up Ford pickup splashing to a stop at the curb. The window rolled down, and a guy leaned out, early 20s maybe, with messy blonde hair plastered to his forehead and a crooked grin that hit Ryan like a shot of whiskey, warm, unexpected, dangerous. "You look like you could use a dry shirt and a beer," the guy said, voice carrying that easy Midwestern drawl laced with something sharper, like he'd seen his share of storms. "Hop in before you drown, man." Ryan hesitated, thumb still hovering like he might bolt. Strangers didn't just offer rides in the rain, not without strings. But the guy's eyes were kind, blue as Lake Erie on a good day, and something in them said I've been there. "Name's Matthew," he added, jerking his thumb at the passenger seat. "And yeah, I get it. Trust me, I do." Against every instinct screaming run, Ryan climbed in. The cab smelled like pine air freshener and takeout Chinese, heater blasting blessed warmth. Matthew didn't pry as they peeled away from the curb, just cranked up the radio to some Springsteen wailing about Thunder Roads. By the time they pulled up to a squat brick apartment building in Over the Rhine, Ryan's teeth had stopped chattering. "Crash on my couch tonight," Matthew said, killing the engine. "Tomorrow, we figure out the rest." That night, Ryan lay on the lumpy sofa, staring at water stains on the ceiling that looked like maps to nowhere. Matthew's place was a bachelor's dream, pizza boxes stacked like modern art, a guitar propped in the corner, posters of indie bands Ryan pretended to know. He could hear Matthew puttering in the kitchen, humming off-key to the radio. For the first time in hours, the knot in Ryan's chest loosened just a fraction. Maybe this was rock bottom. Maybe this was the start. Morning came with the sizzle of bacon and the rich, bitter scent of coffee brewing in a pot that had seen better days. Matthew slid a plate across the formica table, eggs sunny side up, just how Ryan liked them, though he'd never told the guy that. So, Matthew said, pouring mugs, spill. Or don't. But if you're running from something, Cincinnati's got more hiding spots than a speakeasy during Prohibition. Ryan poked at his food, the words sticking like gravel in his throat. Family stuff, he muttered finally. Dad found out I'm, gay. Kicked me out. Mom didn't stop him. Matthew nodded. No pity in his eyes. Just a quiet understanding that made Ryan's skin prickle. Yeah. Been there. My folks in Dayton pulled the same shit 2 years back. Evangelical types thought prayer could fix me. Last I heard, they're still waiting on that miracle. He chuckled. But it was hollow, like wind through empty bleachers. You eat first, then we hit the streets. I've got a buddy at a coffee shop needs a barista. Tips ain't bad, and the crowd's mostly harmless. Just like that, Ryan had a job slinging lattes at Brew Haven, a hole-in-the-wall joint with mismatched chairs and walls papered in local art. Matthew worked construction across the river in Kentucky, swinging hammers on high-rises that scraped the sky, but he'd swing by after shifts, nursing a black coffee while Ryan frothed milk for hipsters in skinny jeans. They fell into a rhythm, easy as breathing late-night walks along the Ohio River, where the water churned dark and restless under sodium lamps. Movie marathons with bootleg DVDs of Brokeback Mountain that left them both silent and staring at the floor. Shared silences over six-packs on the fire escape, city lights twinkling like fallen stars. Matthew was the first guy Ryan had ever really talked to, not just hooked up with in the shadows of truck stops or back alleys. He was solid, like the oak trees back home that withstood tornadoes, tattoos snaking up his forearms from his Navy days, a laugh that rumbled low and made Ryan's stomach flip. One night, 3 months in, after a double shift and too many IPAs, Matthew leaned across the kitchen table, fingers brushing Ryan's wrist. You're not alone in this, he said, voice rough with something unspoken. Not anymore, Ryan's heart jackhammered. He leaned in, tentative, lips meeting Matthew's in a kiss that tasted like salt and possibility. It wasn't fireworks or violins, just right, like the missing puzzle piece slotting home. They tumbled to the bedroom, shedding clothes and fears, bodies tangling in sheets that smelled of laundry detergent and home. For the first time, Ryan felt seen, not as a mistake or a phase, but as himself, raw, real, wanted. But life in the Queen City wasn't all poetry. Bills piled up like autumn leaves, and the ache for home gnawed at Ryan in quiet moments. He'd scroll through old photos on a burner phone, Mom's smile frozen in time, Dad's arm around his shoulders in Little League glory days. Letters came sporadically at first, stiff notes from Mom, postmarked Milford, full of apologies that rang hollow. We're praying for you. Come back when you're ready to change. Ryan burned them in the sink, the flames licking up scripture like accusations. Matthew saw it all, held him through the breakdowns, the nights Ryan woke gasping from dreams of shotguns and slammed doors. You're building something here, he'd murmur, arms a fortress around Ryan's waist. Don't let them drag you back. By winter's end, they'd scraped together enough for a deposit on a one-bedroom in Northside, a quirky neighborhood with murals on every corner and a dive bar that hosted drag nights. Ryan inked a deal at the coffee shop full-time. Matthew landed foreman on a bridge project. They adopted a mangy tabby cat named Whiskey, who purred like a chainsaw and knocked over mugs for sport. It was domestic, dangerously normal, a life stitched from thrift store finds and takeout dreams. Then, on a muggy June evening 5 years to the day Ryan had stepped off that bus, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number, Ohio area code. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something fate, masochism made him answer. Ryan, a voice, frail and familiar, cracked through the line. Mom. Baby, I need you. Please. It's the baby. Inside me. Your half-sister. She's coming, and I can't do this alone. The world tilted. Ryan's grip tightened, knuckles whitening again, as the rain started pattering against the window like an old, unwelcome friend. Ryan's hand trembled as he held the phone, the voice on the other end a ghost from a life he'd buried under concrete and caffeine. 5 years. 5 goddamn years of radio silence broken only by those brittle letters. And now this, the baby inside. Mom's words hung in the air, heavy as the humidity seeping through the cracked window. What do you mean? The baby? He managed, voice scraping like sandpaper. Matthew stirred beside him, blinking awake, concern etching lines across his sleep-rumpled face. A sob crackled through the line, raw and unfiltered. Your dad. He's gone. Ryan. Heart attack last winter. Truck flipped on black ice out by the quarry. And I met someone. Paul. He's good to me, steady. But he's got his own demons, booze, mostly. And now this. I'm 42, pregnant with a girl. Due in 3 months. Paul's in rehab, and God, I can't lose her too. Not like I lost you. Lost him? The irony burned hotter than the time Dad had caught him with Jake and called him an abomination. Ryan swung his legs over the bed's edge, pacing the worn hardwood that creaked like confessions. The apartment felt smaller, walls closing in with memories. Mom's hands kneading dough for apple pie, her laughter echoing through the trailer on lazy Sundays. She'd chosen Dad then, chosen silence over salvation. Now she needed a savior? You kicked me out, he said, low and even, though his chest heaved. For being me. And now you want me back? For what? A free babysitter. Matthew sat up, hand reaching for Ryan's arm, a silent anchor. His touch grounded, but the storm inside Ryan raged on. Mom's breath hitched. I was wrong. Scared. Your father. He was everything back then. But I've changed, prayed, read every book on forgiveness. Paul knows about you, about us. He says you're welcome. Please, Ryan. Just come see. 1 weekend. For her. The line went dead before he could answer, leaving only the dial tone's mocking buzz. Ryan hurled the phone onto the quilt, sinking to the floor with his head in his hands. Whiskey slunk over, rubbing against his knee, oblivious to the fracture lines spiderwebbing his world. Matthew slid down beside him, pulling Ryan into his chest, heartbeat steady as a metronome. Talk to me, he murmured, fingers carting through Ryan's hair. Spilled out then, the whole ugly knot, the trailer park exile, the Greyhound escape, and now this curveball, a half-sister, unborn and innocent, collateral in a family war. Matthew listened without interrupting, his silence a bomb. When Ryan finished, hoarse and hollow, Matthew cupped his face, thumbs brushing away tears Ryan hadn't realized were falling. "You don't owe them shit," he said firmly. "But if part of you wants to go, I'll drive you myself. We're in this, thick and thin." The next days blurred into a haze of what-ifs. At Brew Haven, Ryan zoned out mid-shift, scalding his hand on the espresso machine without flinching. Customers blurred, tattooed artists nursing hangovers, suits barking orders for oat milk abominations. Matthew took extra overtime, his calloused hands rougher each night as he collapsed beside Ryan, whispering reassurances in the dark. "You're not that scared kid anymore," he'd say. "You've got a life here. Us." But the pull was magnetic, a tether yanking at old wounds. Ryan booked a bus ticket for the following Friday, one way to Milford, telling himself it was reconnaissance, not reconciliation. Matthew saw him off at the station, rain slicking the pavement again, like the universe's cruel poetry. They kissed goodbye under the awning, fierce and lingering, Matthew's stubble scraping Ryan's jaw. "Call me every hour," he growled, half joking. "And if it goes south, you bail. Promise." The ride back was a 7-hour purgatory, Greyhound rumbling through cornfields and dying towns, each mile marker a milestone of regret. Ryan scrolled through old texts from Matthew, silly memes, heart emojis, photos of them grinning at Reds games with foam fingers and face paint. His own replies stared back, lighter than, unscarred. By the time the bus wheezed into the Milford depot, dusk painted the sky bruise purple, and Ryan's stomach churned like bad diner coffee. Mom waited under the flickering fluorescent, thinner than he remembered, her once vibrant curls limp and graying at the temples. She spotted him across the lot, eyes widening like she'd seen a resurrection. "Ryan," she breathed, stepping forward, arms outstretched. He froze, the hug hanging awkward and unclaimed. Close, the changes hit hard. Lines etched deep around her mouth, a faint swell under her loose blouse where the baby grew. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking. "Just thank you for coming." The drive home was silent torture, Paul's old Chevy pickup rattling over potholes, the radio tuned low to country ballads about lost love and second chances. Milford hadn't changed, same rusted silos, same faded Jesus Saves billboards, same gossips peering from porches as they passed. The trailer looked smaller, sadder, porch light buzzing like a trapped fly. Inside, it smelled of Lysol and microwave dinners, the living room shrine of family photos glaring down. Ryan at 12, gap-toothed and happy. Dad in his flannel, arms slung proud. Mom beaming at some long-ago picnic. Paul was there, surprisingly sober, seemed, from the clear eyes and steady grip when he shook Ryan's hand. Mid-40s, burly with a salt and pepper beard, he clapped Ryan on the shoulder like they'd been buddies forever. "Heard a lot about you, son. Glad you're here." Dinner was awkward pot roast, conversation skirting landmines, the weather, the quarry layoffs, anything but the elephant in the room or the shotgun still mounted above the TV like a threat. That night, Ryan bunked in his old room, posters of Nolan Ryan and the Cincinnati Bengals yellowed and curling. He lay awake, listening to Mom's muffled sobs from the master, Paul's low murmurs soothing her. The baby, this tiny stranger, kicked against the walls of her womb, a Morse code of "help me." Ryan's phone vibrated under his pillow. "Matthew, right on cue. You okay? Miss you already." Ryan typed back, fingers flying. It's weird. Like time travel. But I'm breathing. A pause. Then, love you. Come home soon. Saturday dawned sticky. Mom bustling with forced cheer. Brewing Folgers strong as regret. They talked, halting at first, about the pregnancy scares, the doctor's warnings at her age, Paul's slip-ups with the bottle. I named her Hope, Mom said, hand on her belly, eyes pleading. After that verse in Romans. But I need more than faith, Ryan. I need family. He wanted to scream. You had family, and you threw it away, but the words died unspoken. Instead, he nodded, helping her fold tiny onesies, the fabric soft as forgiveness he wasn't ready to give. Paul joined them on the porch swing later, cracking open sodas, sharing stories of his own fuck-ups, a divorce, a stint in county for a bar fight. Love's messy, he said, glancing at Mom with a tenderness that twisted Ryan's gut. But it's worth the scars. By evening, cracks showed. A neighbor dropped by, Mrs. Hargrove, busybody supreme, clucking over the prodigal son returned. Whispers followed, heard he's one of them now. Living in sin up north. Mom's face flushed, but she defended him, voice sharp, Ryan's my boy. End of story. It was the first shield she'd thrown his way in years. Small but seismic. That night, alone with his thoughts, Ryan cracked. He called Matthew, voice thick. It's not black and white. She's broken. And this baby, she didn't ask for any of this. Matthew's laugh was soft, knowing. Sounds like someone else I know. Just don't lose yourself there. You're my home. Sunday service at First Baptist was a minefield. Mom insisted, sliding into the pew like old times, her hand brushing his tentatively. The pastor droned on hellfire and redemption, eyes lingering on Ryan a beat too long. Whispers rustled like dry leaves. Afterward, Dad's grave waited under a weeping willow, headstone stark, beloved husband, father. Ryan knelt, rain from last night still puddling the grass, and whispered, fuck you for making me hate you. Mom found him there, umbrella in hand. He loved you, she said softly. In his way. But fear poisons everything. Tears tracked her cheeks, mixing with the patter on the nylon. Forgive me, Ryan. Not for him, for us. He stood, arms folding tight. I don't know if I can. Not yet, but as they drove back, her hand on his knee, something shifted, a hairline fracture in the ice. The bus left at dawn Monday, Ryan's backpack heavier with ghosts. Mom hugged him fierce at the depot, pressing a Tupperware of cookies into his hands. Come back, she pleaded. For her. For you. He nodded, throat too tight for words. And as the Greyhound pulled away, Milford shrank in the mirror like a bad dream fading. Back in Cincinnati, Matthew waited with pizza and open arms, their kiss a homecoming. But the voicemail lingered, hope's kick and echo in Ryan's dreams. The call had come. Now what? Summer thickened into a sweltering beast. Cincinnati's humidity wrapping the city like a damp blanket, turning every breath into a labor. Ryan threw himself into work, experimenting with iced lattes laced with lavender syrup that drew lines out the door at Brew Haven. Customers raved, tips clinking like approval, but his mind wandered north, to the swell of Mom's belly and the unanswered texts. Ultrasound went great. She's kicking like a mule. He'd reply with thumbs-up emojis, safe distances, but the pull grew, insidious as ivy cracking concrete. Matthew noticed, of course. He always did. Over rooftop barbecues with their ragtag crew, drag queen baristas, queer artists from the galleries, a tattooed mechanic named Lena who'd patched up Matthew's truck more times than Ryan could count. They'd steal moments, hands linked under picnic tables, laughter masking the tension. "You're drifting," Matthew said one night, as fireworks popped over the river for the 4th, their reflections dancing in the Ohio's murky flow. Ryan leaned into him, beer bottle sweating in his grip. "It's not drifting. Unresolved business." The call came in August. Paul's voice this time, slurred, panicked. "She's bleeding, Ryan. Ambulance. Get here now." Ryan's world narrowed to the screech of tires as he floored Matthew's truck across state lines. Radio silenced, heart slamming like a bass drop. Matthew rode shotgun, hand on his thigh, a steady pressure. "Breathe. Breathe. She's tough, like her brother." Milford General was a fluorescent purgatory, linoleum floors echoing with beeps and muffled cries. Mom lay pale in a gown, for dripping salvation, Paul pacing like a caged bull. "Preterm labor," the doc said, clipboard in hand. "Bed rest. Meds. Baby's hanging on, but it's touch and go." Ryan took her hand, cool and clammy, the same hand that had bandaged his scraped knees and braided his hair before church. "I'm here," he whispered. "Not going anywhere." The next weeks were a grind. Ryan shuttling between Ohio and the river, crashing on the trailer couch amid stacks of baby books and half-eaten casseroles from church ladies who eyed him like he'd sprout horns. Mom rallied, color returning to her cheeks, but Paul spiraled, relapse whispers turning to shouts, bottles clinking in the dead of night. One evening, Ryan walked in on him slumped at the kitchen table, whiskey glass trembling. "Can't do this," Paul muttered. "Too much." "The kid." "Your mom." "Fuck." Rage boiled up, hot and familiar. Ryan snatched the bottle, hurling it into the sink where it shattered like his patience. "You think this is about you? She's carrying your daughter, asshole. Sober up or get out." Paul lunged, fist raised, but Ryan didn't flinch. Years of construction site scraps with Matthew had toughened him. They grappled, chairs toppling, until Mom's cry from the bedroom halted them cold. Paul slunk out, tail between legs, and Ryan held her through the sobs, rocking like she had him as a boy. Matthew arrived the next day, duffel slung over shoulder, declaring a reinforcements tour. He fixed the leaky faucet, grilled burgers on the rusty Weber, even charmed the nurses with dad jokes that elicited eye rolls and reluctant smiles. At night, they'd slip out to the old swing set in the backyard, creaking under their weight, stars pricking the velvet sky. "This place is a time warp," Matthew said, arm around Ryan's shoulders. "But you're handling it like a champ." It was there, under a harvest moon, that Ryan kissed him, deep, desperate, a reclaiming. "I love you," he said, the words a vow against the dark. "For seeing me through this shit." Matthew's grin flashed white. "Ditto, Whitaker. Now let's get you home before I start line dancing." But home fractured further. Paul's bender peaked in a DUI, cuffs clicking as sheriff's deputies hauled him away. Mom, 8 months along, collapsed in the squad car aftermath, contractions hitting like freight trains. Ryan drove her to the ER, white-knuckled on the wheel, praying to a God he'd long doubted. Hope arrived at 2:17 a.m., 3 weeks early, a squall of fury and fragility, 3 pounds even, tubes snaking from her tiny limbs in the NICU isolette. Ryan stood vigil through the glass, hand pressed to the cold pane, watching her chest rise and fall in mechanical rhythm. Mom, doped on pain meds, squeezed his fingers from her bed. "She's perfect," she murmured. "Our little fighter." Paul, bailed out and contrite, hovered in the hall, flowers wilting in his grip. Forgiveness flickered, tentative as a match flame. Ryan nodded him in, the three of them a fragile trinity around the miracle. Back in Cincinnati come September, life resumed with a newborn hitch. Weekend runs to Milford for feedings and checkups. Hope's coos a siren call. Matthew adapted, baby wearing like a pro, his broad frame comical under the pastel carrier. Their friends threw a makeshift shower at the apartment streamers from Dollar Store, cake iced with Auntie Lena's badass baby. Laughter echoed off brick walls, but under it, Ryan simmered. Paul's rehab stints cycled like seasons. Mom's pleas grew wearier. He loves us. Give him time. October brought betrayal's sting. Ryan, dropping off diapers at the trailer, walked in on Paul midrant, phone to ear, voice venomous. "Yeah, the faggot's back, playing house. Thinks he can fix us? That queer shit's why the boy's dad drank himself dead." The words landed like punches, Paul whirling, face crumpling from fury to shame. "Ryan, I didn't mean," but he had. Every slur an echo of Dad's shotgun wave, Mom's averted eyes. Ryan stormed out, tires spinning gravel, calling Matthew from the highway. "Pick me up." Now, they met at a rest stop diner, Ryan's hands shaking around a styrofoam coffee cup. Matthew listened, then pulled him into the truck's cab, holding tight as the dam broke, sobs racking Ryan's frame, years of buried hurt flooding free. "Fuck them," Matthew growled, but Ryan shook his head. "No. There's hope. She doesn't deserve this mess." They drove through the night, windows down, wind whipping away the salt. Dawn broke over the river, golden and unforgiving, as Ryan vowed one more chance. For her. November chilled the air, leaves carpeting sidewalks in crimson regret. Ryan returned, conditions laid bare, therapy for Paul, boundaries like barbed wire. Mom nodded, tears glistening, while Hope, plumped to 5 pounds, gripped his finger with surprising strength. Uncle Ryan, the nurses teased, and it stuck, a title heavier than gold. Yet cracks spiderwebbed. Paul's sobriety wobbled, late nights at AA turning to bar stools. Mom defended, voice fraying, "He's trying." Ryan bit back retorts, for Hope's gummy smiles, her first gurgles echoing family. Matthew, patient saint, flew solo on date nights, picnics in Eden Park, where autumn foliage framed their talks of futures. Rings, maybe, or a down payment on a house with a yard for whiskey to terrorize. Thanksgiving loomed, powder keg. Ryan invited them all, Mom, Paul, Hope in her carrier throne, to Cincinnati for turkey and trimmings. The apartment brimmed, Lena's cornbread, friends' pies, Matthew's lopsided bird. Toasts clinked, awkward at first, Paul mumbling grace with downcast eyes. Hope, passed hand to hand, melted defenses, Matthew cradling her like spun glass, cooing bass rumbles that drew giggles. But after pie, as dishes clattered, Paul cornered Ryan in the kitchen. "I was wrong," he slurred, breath sour with hidden flask. "About you. About everything. But this," he gestured wildly, knocking glasses. "It's too much. The kid. Your lifestyle. We're poison here." Mom pulled him away, apologies tumbling, but the damage bloomed, red as the wine stain on the rug. Ryan's roar shook the walls. "Get out. Both of you. Before you poison her too." The door slammed, friends frozen in stunned silence. Matthew cleaned up the mess, literal and not, holding Ryan as fury ebbed to exhaustion. "You did right," he whispered. "Protecting your own." In the quiet aftermath, Hope slept on, oblivious, her tiny fist curled like a question mark. Ryan kissed her forehead, whispering promises to the dark. Winter clamped down hard that year, Cincinnati's winds howling off the river like banshees, frosting windows with intricate lace that mocked the fractures inside. Ryan's texts to Mom went unanswered at first, then trickled in brief, brittle, "Paul's sorry. We're working on it." He didn't reply, channeling the hurt into midnight runs along the serpentine paths of MT. Storm Park, breath clouding in the frigid air, Matthew trailing with a thermos of spiked cocoa. "You're allowed to grieve this," Matthew said one night, snow dusting their scarves. "It's not just loss, it's betrayal squared." Hope's photos arrived via email, milestones in pixels. First smile, a milky burp-up grin that twisted Ryan's heart like a knife. He saved them in a folder labeled Tiny Warrior, zooming in during slow shifts, imagining her chubby cheeks against his. The crew at Brewhaven staged interventions, free therapy sessions disguised as team-building brunches, where Lena sketched caricatures of Paul as a cartoon villain, complete with devil horns and a flask. Laughter helped, a pressure valve, but the ache lingered, a bruise that flowered purple. Christmas approached, strings of lights twinkling defiantly against the gray. Matthew strung the apartment in rainbow garland. "Fuck tradition," he declared, hanging ornaments they'd painted together, a tiny coffee cup, a hammer etched with "build together." Ryan baked gingerbread men, aggressive icing smiles hiding his own forced cheer. Friends piled in for eggnog and die-hard marathons, but as midnight tolled, Ryan slipped out to the fire escape, city below a jewel box of lights. Matthew followed, wrapping him in a wool peacoat that smelled of sawdust and safety. "Talk," he prompted, breath mingling in white puffs. Ryan leaned against the railing, voice low. "I miss her. Hope. And yeah, even Mom, stupid as that sounds. But Paul. He's a grenade with the pin half pulled." Matthew nodded, chin on Ryan's shoulder. "Then set boundaries like rebar. Visit solo. Show up for the kid, not the circus." The idea took root, stubborn as weeds. New Year's Eve, Ryan boarded the bus alone, resolve steeling his spine. Milford glittered with half-hearted festivity, fireworks popping over the quarry like distant gunfire. Mom answered the door haggard, Hope balanced on her hip, eyes lighting like she'd won the lottery. "You came. No Paul in sight, rehab round 2. Mom explained, voice edged with fatigue. The trailer felt emptier, shadows longer, but Hope's babble filled the voids, her 6-month chub spilling over rompers as Ryan scooped her up. She knew him, somehow, gurgles turning to squeals, tiny hands patting his stubble. They spent the day in a bubble, walks to the frozen pond, where Ryan taught her to skate on his boots, story time with Goodnight Moon, voices pitching silly for her delight. Mom watched, tentative smiles cracking her mask. "She's missed you," she said over lukewarm cocoa. "We both have." Paul's absence loomed, a ghost at the table. That night, as snow flurried outside, Mom cracked open the dam. He hit bottom after Thanksgiving. Confessed everything, the slurs, the hate. Said it came from his own dad, a belt-whipping Baptist who called him weak for crying. She twisted a dish rag, knuckles white. "I stayed because fear, habit. But seeing you fight for her, it woke me up." Ryan held Hope closer, her warmth a shield. "Then leave him. For real." Her nod was seismic, a vow whispered to the steam. "Starting tomorrow. Lawyer in Columbus. But I need you, Ryan. Not to fix us, to be us. Family, queer and all." Tears fell, hers and his, mingling on Hope's blanket. For the first time, forgiveness whispered, not absolution, but a truce. Back in the Queen City, Matthew greeted him with a kiss that tasted of champagne and relief. "How'd it go?" Ryan grinned, spinning him under the mistletoe. "Like therapy with diapers. Mom's ditching the deadweight." They made love that night, slow and reverent, bodies mapping scars and strengths, whispers of forever against sweat-damp skin. Spring thawed the ice, literally and not. Mom filed papers, Paul slinking to a halfway house in Dayton with a shrug and a half-assed apology Ryan ignored. Hope's custody danced in legalese, but Ryan pushed for weekends, holidays building bridges from the ashes. He and Matthew hunted apartments uptown, a two-bedroom with sunlight slanting through bay windows, enough space for a crib if things aligned. But conflict brewed, insidious. At Brew Haven, a new hire, slick-haired Kyle from Kentucky, started sniffing around Matthew during pickup shifts, compliments laced with intent. Ryan saw the texts first. Innocuous at first. "Great sight today. Man. Beers?" Then bolder. "Your boyfriend's cute, but bet he'd share." Jealousy flared. Ugly and unbidden. Ryan confronting Matthew over takeout lo mein. "He's just a co-worker," Matthew protested, fork pausing midair. "Flirty bullshit. You know me." But doubt seeded, watered by exhaustion, late nights soothing Hope via video calls, Mom's updates on the divorce grind. Ryan snapped, accusations flying. "Am I enough? Or do you miss the straight boy chase?" Matthew's face hardened, hurt flashing blue. "That's not fair. I've bled for us, your family, this life." He stormed out, door slamming like a guillotine. Silence stretched, a chasm. Ryan crashed at Lena's, scrolling regret through tear-blurred screens. Days blurred into a week. Matthew's radio silence a louder scream than any fight. Hope's first crawl video from Mom broke him. "Uncle Ree. She's a pro." Prompting a midnight drive to the construction site, floodlights bathing the skeleton of a new condo in stark white. Matthew was there, overtime hammer in hand, sweatshirt clinging. Ryan approached, voice raw. "I fucked up. Insecurity's my demon, not you." Matthew lowered the tool, wiping brow with forearm. "Scared me. Thought we were past this." They talked till dawn, words weaving repairs, therapy coupons from Lena, Date nights enforced by calendar pings. The kiss that sealed it was fire, forged, not fragile. Summer solstice brought high drama. Mom's divorce finalized amid court chaos. Paul contesting custody, slinging mud about Ryan's lifestyle influencing Hope. Lawyers circled like sharks. Depositions dredging dirt. Dad's death certificate. Old church affidavits branding Ryan unfit. Mom testified fierce. Voice steady. My son's the strongest man I know. Gay or not, he's family. Ryan took the stand. Palms slick. Recounting the kick-out. The rebuild. The love that anchored him. Paul's cross-exam sneered. Living in sin. Huh? Corrupting the innocent. But the judge, a no-nonsense woman with silver streaks. Shut it down, Mr. Whitaker's orientation is irrelevant. Evidence of stability matters. Ruling. Joint custody. Mom primary. Ryan weekends and summers. Victory bittersweet. Paul's glare a parting shot. Celebration back home was cathartic. Rooftop party with skyline views. Hope in a tiny rainbow onesie. Gurgling at bubbles. Matthew proposed mid-toast. Not with fanfare but a simple band from his pocket silver. Etched with Thunder Road. Ride with me. Ryan's yes was a sob. Ring slipping on like destiny. But autumn winds carried undercurrents. Paul's appeals dragged. Whispers from Milford reaching Cincinnati. Trouble in paradise. Ryan ignored. Focusing on nesting. The crib assembled in their new digs. Walls painted sage green. Hope's first overnight was magic. Bottles at 2 a.m. Matthew's lullabies off-key but earnest. Her first steps wobbling toward Ryan's open arms. Then, the gut punch. Mom's cancer diagnosis. Stage 2. Caught late in a routine check post-divorce stress. Breast, she said over phone. Voice steel. Treatments start next week. Hope. She'll need you more. Ryan's world tilted again. Matthew's hand in his lifeline as they planned the siege. Carpools to chemo. Playdates amplified. Through it, their love deepened. Matthew's vigils at the hospital. Reading where the wild things are to hope in the waiting room. Ryan's gratitude blooming in stolen touches. Notes tucked in lunch bags, my hero. Romance wove through chaos. Candlelit baths after midnight feeds. Slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane on vinyl. Winter's cusp. Mom's hair thinning but spirit unbroken. Brought the high tide. Paul's final appeal crumbled. But in defeat, he showed up sober at the trailer. Eyes clear. Hands open. I was wrong. About everything. Let me make it right. For her. Ryan, holding hope, saw not redemption but potential. Prove it. Start with visits supervised. The truce held, fragile as new ice. The new year dawned with tentative grace. Cincinnati's skyline dusted in fresh snow. A blank canvas for resolutions etched in resolve. Mom's chemo cycles marched on. A brutal rhythm of nausea and needles. But she fought with the ferocity of a woman who'd lost and reclaimed her son. Ryan and Matthew tag-teamed the Ohio runs. Their truck a chariot of casseroles and cartoons. Hope's car seat thrown amid the chaos. Your saints, Mom rasped one gray afternoon. Bald head wrapped in a scarf the color of Ohio Buckeyes. Hope dozing on her lap. Both of you, Matthew, ever the deflector, winked. Nah, just suckers for strong women. Laughter bubbled, thin but true, cutting the sterile hospital air. Paul's supervised visits started rocky. Awkward silences in the park. Hope eyeing him like a stranger. But progress crept in. A shared giggle over peekaboo, a tentative high-five that lingered. Ryan watched from benches, walls thinning brick by brick. Not trust yet, but tolerance. Spring erupted in verdant fury, cherry blossoms carpeting Eden Park like confetti from a wedding yet to come. Ryan and Matthew's ceremony planning wove through the whirlwind, simple, secular, at a riverside pavilion with the Ohio as witness. Invites went out, Lena officiating in sequins, Brew Haven crew as bridesmaids in mismatched bow ties, Mom as matron of honor, her wig a cascade of auburn curls borrowed from a drag sister. Hope, flower girl supreme, toddled down the aisle in a tutu, scattering petals with gleeful abandon. The day was golden, sun slanting through willows, vows exchanged under an arch of wildflowers. I kicked you out once, Mom said in her toast, voice amplified by mic but cracking with emotion. But you've welcomed me back 100 times. To Ryan and Matthew. May your love be the home we all deserve. Glasses clinked. Tears flowed. Paul even present in the back row. Clapping subdued. Hope on his knee like a peace offering. Honeymoon was a road trip echo Thunder Road. Springsteen's anthem blasting as they chased horizons from Cincinnati to the Jersey Shore. Boardwalks creaking underfoot. Waves crashing like applause. No frills. Just them. Salt-tanged kisses on dune blankets. Bonfires where Matthew sketched Ryan's profile in the flames. This is it, Ryan murmured one star-strewn night, head on Matthew's chest. The after happily ever after, Matthew's chuckle rumbled. Damn right. With detours for tiny tyrants. Back home. Normalcy nested. Mom's scans glowed clean, remission. A word sweeter than remission, allowing full custody shifts. Hope's room a riot of stuffed animals and ABC blocks. Ryan cut back barista hours for freelance graphic design. Logos for queer-owned shops that paid in purpose. Matthew's foreman gig stabilized. Bonuses funding a backyard swing set where hope swung high. Shrieks piercing summer dusks. But humanity's arc bent slow. Conflicts lingering like summer storms. Paul's redemption faltered mid-year. A relapse at a family reunion. Slurring toasts that veered homophobic. Ryan cut him off cold. Court papers amending visits to nil. Not again, he told Mom over coffee. Hope finger-painting at their feet. She deserves better. Mom nodded, weary wisdom in her eyes. You taught me that. The betrayal's echo rippled into their circle. A Brew Haven regular. Outed by Paul's loose lips during a bender. Faced workplace whispers. Ryan rallied fundraisers. Pride panels turning pain to power. Matthew's hammer swings funding the cause. Their love, battle-tested, bloomed resilient. Anniversaries marked with tattoos. Matching thunderbolts on wrists. Inked in a Northside parlor amid laughter and local brews. Fall painted the city in fire. Leaves crunching underfoot as Hope's second birthday dawned. The party sprawled across their yard. Piñatas bursting candy rain. Kids from Mom's playgroup mixing with Cincinnati queerlings in a tapestry of tiny humans. Paul crashed it uninvited. Sober 3 months. Flowers for Hope clutched like contrition. Chaos erupted, shouts. A shove from a protective uncle, until Ryan stepped in. Voice calm as lake water. You want in? Earn it. Start with sorry. Not showing. Paul knelt then. I level with hope. Words tumbling genuine. I messed up, kiddo. Grandpa's fixing his boo-boos. She tilted her head, considering, then hugged his neck. Innocence absolving what adults couldn't. Ryan's throat tightened. Matthew's hand found his, squeezing. Later, beers around the fire pit. Paul opened up, AA stories, therapy breakthroughs, a quiet admission, hated myself most. Projected it. Ryan listened, walls crumbling to dust. Welcome back. Slow. Thanksgiving rebuilt bridges. Table groaning under turkey and tofurkey. Mom stuffing a legend reborn. Hope, precocious at 2. Demanded stories. Uncle Ree. Tell the bus one. Ryan spun the tale sanitized, rainy rides. Kind strangers, ending with Matthew's grin. And that's how we found our way. Laughter wove them tighter. Paul's toast humble. To second acts. Winter wrapped them gentle. Holidays a mosaic. Hanukkah lacks from Lena's kin. Christmas with Mom's carols. New Year's under the ball drop on TV. Hope conked out on Ryan's lap. Mom dated cautiously. A librarian with kind eyes and no baggage. Whispers of maybe floating like snowflakes. By spring's thaw, Hope turned explorer. Her third summer a whirlwind of preschool finger paints and park picnics. Ryan and Matthew eyed expansion, adoption whispers, fostering dreams, love's legacy unfurling. Paul's role solidified. Weekend grandpa, teaching her to fish in the quarry pond. Stories of dad reframed heroic. Flaws footnoted. One July dusk. Rooftop gathering with the old crew. City humming below. Ryan pulled Matthew aside. Remember that rainy night? Thought I was done. Matthew's arm slung warm. Nah. That was the spark. Hope toddled over, demanding piggyback. And as they lifted her high, laughter cascading, Ryan felt it whole. Not perfect, scarred and stitched, but human. Mom joined them, arm linked in Ryan's, Hope's chubby hand in hers. We made it, she said, eyes on the horizon where river met sky. All of us. The sun dipped, painting them gold. A family forged in fire, loved into light. 5 years from exile, Ryan wasn't just surviving. He was home.